You've got a TV show that everyone loves. You've got a family that seems to be in the middle of a major crisis. And you've got an entire nation completely outraged. But what if that whole story was a lie? What if it was all cooked up just for television? We're going to break down how a single broadcast sparked this massive firestorm and, in the process, revealed a huge crisis of trust in the media. Okay, so let's set the scene. It all starts with this really popular, long-running Japanese variety show called Tante Night Scoop, which basically means Detective Night Scoop. And on this one particular night, they aired a story that would pretty much stop the whole country in its tracks. So the show introduces us to this 12-year-old boy. He's the oldest of 6 kids, and he just seems completely overwhelmed. His request, as you can see right here, was just so simple and desperate sounding. I want to quit being the oldest brother. I mean, that's a line that grabs you, right? It immediately pulled at the heartstrings of everyone watching. And the show really went all in, building this picture. They painted him as this young carer, totally buried in chores, looking after his 5 younger siblings. You can see how they framed it. The dad is nowhere to be seen. The mom seems totally checked out, and this poor kid is just trapped. No friends, no fun. They even had a celebrity guest come in for a day, who of course was shown to be completely wiped out by the workload. It was all designed to look like a crisis. And this was the knockout punch. Right at the end of this super emotional segment, the mom comes home, and the first thing she says to her exhausted son is, "Cook the rice. 7 cups." That one line just sealed the deal for the audience. It wasn't a request. It sounded like this cold, heartless demand that just confirmed everyone's worst fears about what was happening in that house. So, as you can imagine, the public reaction was just instant and furious. But then, almost right away, the story the show had built so carefully, well, it started to fall apart. And this is the big question that started bubbling up online. People started to wonder, wait a minute, was any of that real? Or did we just get played? Turns out, the answer was way more shocking than the show itself. Now, to really get what happened, we need to talk about a specific Japanese word, yarase. This isn't just, clever editing to make things more dramatic. Yarase is when you straight up stage or script something and then pass it off as if it happened for real. It's crossing the line from entertainment into total deception. And this table just lays it all out side by side. It's wild. The boy's real request wasn't that he was tired of his life. He was actually proud and just curious how other big families did things. The absent father, he was actually the main caregiver. The kid with no social life, he was out playing basketball several times a week. And that killer of mine, cook the rice, yeah, that was completely scripted. The TV crew literally fed that line to the mother to get their dramatic ending. And it gets even crazier. This wasn't some misunderstanding. This was deliberate. The producers knew the dad was the primary parent, so to sell their story of this struggling, neglectful mom, they just asked him to leave the house while they were filming. They literally manufactured the crisis from scratch. Now, you might be thinking, okay, a variety show faked a story. So what? But the real-world impact of this lie on the actual family at the center of it all, it was immediate, it was huge, and it was incredibly destructive. This is pretty much a textbook example of how a digital firestorm gets started. First, you have the broadcast, with its emotional, fake story. That immediately leads to a massive explosion on social media. From there, the online anger turns into vicious public shaming, with the parents, especially the mom, getting absolutely hammered. And it didn't just stay online. People were so convinced that they started calling child protective services on the family. And the comments were just brutal. People were calling the mother a toxic parent. They were screaming this is child abuse, all based on a few minutes of a heavily edited, completely fake TV segment. They felt like they knew everything they needed to know to judge this family's entire life. But the TV station's first move here is maybe the wildest part. While this family is getting torn to shreds online because of the story they invented, the network puts out a statement asking people to please stop criticizing the family. The catch? They didn't admit they made the whole thing up. They basically lit a house on fire and then told everyone to calm down, all while hiding the gasoline can behind their back. So the big question is, how did this spin so completely out of control? How does a local show cause a national meltdown like this? Well, the answer is this really fascinating mix of old media culture and brand new technology. To really get it, we have to talk about something called context collapse. Basically, it's what happens when a piece of media that was made for a very specific small audience, an audience that gets all the inside jokes and local flavor, suddenly goes viral and is seen by a massive global audience that has zero of that original context.
And that is exactly what happened here. See, Tante Night Scoop is originally from the Kansai region of Japan, which is known for a certain kind of loud, over-the-top humor. The local viewers probably understood that it was all a bit of a performance, but then a streaming service called TVer put the show online for the entire country to see. All of a sudden, a new audience that didn't know the show's history watched it and saw not entertainment, but what they thought was a serious documentary about child abuse.
What this really shows is that the rules of the game have totally changed. The old way of thinking was kind of this unspoken agreement. Producers exaggerate for entertainment, and the audience just kind of goes along with it. But that's not the world we live in anymore. Now, with social media, viewers have the power to demand authenticity, to fact-check things in real time, and to hold creators accountable. That old excuse of, hey, it's just TV, it just doesn't fly anymore.
So, look, this whole incident wasn't just some one-off mistake. It really pulls back the curtain on a much bigger, more systemic issue about the power that media has and the responsibilities that are supposed to come with that power.
What the show did actually has a name, and it's a pretty ugly one: emotional porn. It's when producers find real people, often people in vulnerable spots, and they exploit their situation, or in this case, invent a tragic one, just to squeeze a strong emotional reaction out of the audience, all for the sake of getting good ratings.
And this is really the heart of the ethical failure here. They found a kid who was genuinely proud of his family, proud of his role as the oldest brother. And just to make what they thought was good TV, they twisted his story around and forced him into playing the part of a victim. They stole his truth for entertainment. And the damage is just widespread and long-lasting. For the show, decades of viewer trust are gone. People are now looking back at old episodes wondering what else was fake. For the family, they're now stuck with this digital tattoo, this false story that will follow them online forever. And for the wider TV industry, it's a huge wake-up call about a culture that too often puts ratings ahead of reality. So, at the end of the day, it all comes down to this one critical question. Yeah, the TV station apologized. The episode got pulled. But the damage was done. When the media decides that a lie makes for a better story than the truth, who really ends up paying the price? It's never the producers. It's always the real people whose lives get used, twisted, and then just left behind in the mess.